Welcome to the first episode of Ludobardo in English. Ludobardo is a web series dedicated to the critical analysis of narrative in games. And I'm here directly from the Grand Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, California, to talk about my narrative analysis of Way of the Samurai 3. Way of the Samurai 3 is a Japanese game that I decided to analyze for the game narrative competition here at the Game Developers Conference. It's part of the Narrative Summit, and a series of articles were sent, and after being evaluated and approved, these articles were all of them presented as posters, and this is a poster for Way of the Samurai 3. So what's the concept of the game? Way of the Samurai 3 is, by industry definition, as I put it here, an action-adventure game. You've got a third-person camera that acts like any other camera, following the player character. However, what happens here is that in reality you have a very unique, right here, there's where I put it, Kurosawa-esque hybrid of action-based samurai simulator with role-playing elements and moral choices. Why is that? It's because Way of the Samurai 3 is deeply drenched in a series of cultural references and influences from the Akira Kurosawa films. And not only that, but being the game taking place during the Sengoku Warring States period from the Japanese history means that you as a lone samurai, as a ronin, need to find your purpose in an area that has been recently devastated by a clash between shoguns and opposite clans. So what happens here is that you have this basic structure of an action-adventure game, but in reality what Way of the Samurai presents, despite its flaws, and there are many flaws, if you check out the samurai's weakness here, there's a following text: if a particular player cannot overcome the difficulties offered by the confusing user interface, clunky controls, stubborn camera, poor graphics, then the rewarding narrative experience can be easily dismissed. And that's the problem here. You have a lot of flaws, so Way of the Samurai is essentially, it's the third iteration, so this version is actually better than the first and the second. But what happens here is that were it not for the narrative concept, for the narrative experience that is presented in this game would not be able to be successful as it is. The experience is really good, but the game not necessarily, and you'll understand why. Well, first of all, you're this ronin, this lone samurai that is in the region of Amana. You had a shogun, but he was defeated in battle, so now you have no master and you have no purpose. Well, you have no purpose, which is something good, because you as the player can decide what to do. So you have the Oka clan, which is this clan that's vying for power. They lost in the previous battle and they went over to take the current clan, which is the Fujimori clan. And the Fujimori clan is a very oppressive clan, with taxes, with they're really up into the villagers, and the villagers they don't feel well because they're in the middle of this crossfire between rival clans. And what happens here is that you, as this lone samurai, can decide to either help any of those clans, be it the villagers, the Oka, or the Fujimori clan. But despite of whether or not you choose to do that, the essence of the game is that you can decide to tread whatever path you want through the mechanics themselves. You express yourself through dialogue choices, through conversations. However, you also use your sword as a means of expression. Throughout any cutscene in the game, you can choose to draw your sword, and that's going to freak out the other person, but then you can choose to cut her down, kill her, or not. Or you can even be killed yourself, meaning that once you do that, it actually creates a very expressive situation in the game. You can use your expression, you can use your sword to influence the course of that conversation. And not only that, but you can also use the blunt side of your sword, meaning that once you use the blunt side of your sword, you're only going to knock out the enemies, not kill anyone. All of these actions have narrative repercussions, because the game has over 15 endings, so what you do throughout your playthrough influences what ending you're going to get. But then once you reach the ending, is the game over? Definitely not. And that's what's interesting here that I pinpoint as one of the lessons. Various short stories can best a single novel. What does that mean? It means that, contrary to a typical RPG, it does not take you 30 hours to get over, to finish a storyline in the Way of the Samurai. It takes you about 1 to 2 hours. And once you do that, what's really interesting is that you can go back to the game. And you go back to the game with all of the information you acquired previously. And once you acquired all of that information, you have a different take on things. You have a different point of view. And you can decide to go and live a different life and create another short story instead of a single novel. Meaning that once you do that, what's really interesting in the game is how it works with the concept of reincarnation. The game is it's a Japanese game, so the religion of Buddhism is extremely present throughout the whole experience. And not only that, what you also notice is that characters, specifically one character in the game, also explicitly references the player and breaks the fourth wall, asking if he has been in that world before. It's a lady that you can only save once you know how to fight, but you can only fight on your second playthrough because she appears right at the beginning of the game. Meaning that all of these references, they are tackling on the topic of narrative reincarnation. Narrative reincarnation is the concept that I devised for this article in order to explain that The Way of the Samurai 3 is actually a game focused on a series of different branching narrative paths, and the fact that you choose to go through one path is only a way to get access to more information and go to the others. And you're always living lives, and through freedom, experimenting with all of these options in order to reach a certain goal. So that is pretty much what Way of the Samurai 3 is. I'd like to read the summation here. Because of all of its references, all the way from Buddhism to religion to the Akira Kurosawa movies. In fact, there are references to Seven Samurai and the film Ran. The game delivers an experience drenched in cultural influence, ranging from cinema, history, and religion. This defines the game as a work of expression, capable of conveying powerful and meaningful messages, especially ones referring to freedom of living different stories. Choice and consequence serve as a structure, narrative, and ethical testing grounds. In other words, it's not just because the swordplay in Narrative Samurai is not good that it's not a fantastic experience. Fighting is only a small part of all the things you're going to live through. The important part is that you're not going to live once. You're going to live many times, and it is only by living many times that you're going to be experimenting with ethical and moral boundaries. And once you do that, you'll be able to live the full experience regardless of the production values it offers. Way of the Samurai is without a doubt a very interesting concept, although unpolished, but a very interesting concept that leads players to ponder and reflect on what sort of game they are playing and think about that experience in a way that directly confronts a superficial evaluation that would only remain discussing graphics and clunky controls or cameras. So in essence, this is the poster, and this is just a very, very brief synthesis of what I wrote. If you want to check out the poster in high resolution or even the PDF article with all of the information I discussed regarding this game, just check the links below. And thank you very much for your time, because when I think of Way of the Samurai 3, I think of narrative.